హాయ్ గాయ్స్, వెల్కమ్ టు మ్యాన్ ఫిక్షన్ రియాక్ట్స్. ఇవాళ గలాటా ప్లస్ నుంచి రాజ్ కుమార్ హిరానిని భరద్వాజ్ రంగన్ గారు ఇంటర్వ్యూ చేశారనమాట. ఐఎమ్ రియలీ ఎక్సైటెడ్ బికాస్ ఆయన లాంటి డైరెక్టర్ నుంచి నేను చాలా తక్కువ ఇంటర్వ్యూలు చూశాను. సో అందులోనూ భరద్వాజ్ రంగన్ గారు అడిగే క్వశ్చన్ చాలా ఇష్టం నాకు. సో ఎలాంటి ఇంటర్వ్యూ ఉండబోతుందని చెప్పేసి చాలా ఎక్సైటెడ్ గా ఉన్నా. ఎప్పుడో వచ్చింది, చూద్దామని వెయిట్ చేస్తున్నా. ఇలాంటి ఇంటర్వ్యూలు ఇంకేం చూడాలో మీరు కింద కామెంట్స్ లో చెప్పండి. చూసేద్దాం. రెండు పార్ట్లు, రెండు సెపరేట్ వీడియోలు చేస్తా. ఇదైతే ఫస్ట్ పార్ట్ చూసేద్దాం. సో వితౌట్ ఎనీ డిలే లెట్స్ వాచ్ ద ఫస్ట్ వన్.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Rajkumar Hirani to Galata Plus. Lovely to meet you. So,
Nice being here.
so I want to begin by see a Rajkumar Hirani film. It carries a cachet, it's a weight now, because it's like when a director becomes successful over a period of time, and the films are also very beloved, like your films are. That phrase begins to mean something. Oh, this next thing is a Rajkumar Hirani film. We need to go watch it. Does that place a burden on you when you begin a project, when you write?
It doesn't bring pressure when you're beginning it. When you're releasing it, possibly it does.
Okay.
Because, see, we all of us make films so that finally you want appreciation for that film. You want, you're spending 3-4 years of your life to tell a story. You want it to be appreciated. And I guess the only time that pressure is not there when you're doing your first film, because that time the sheer joy of making your first film is larger than any other pressure. But gradually that pressure does come on, but I look at it as it also has its pluses where people want to see it, so you strive harder. And you do get pressurized, you want it to succeed. But for me, success is not that, it brings in huge numbers. You want appreciation, actually.
Right.
You want that, this story has reached out to people and people are liking it.
But how do you find that out? Like is it by box office numbers, or what? How do you find out people are liking it? How do you get that?
See, actually, box office numbers are so temporary. It's in that 1 month, 2 months where you'll see some numbers and people going in and the numbers reaching there. There could be many different reasons for it. It could be an initial outburst. There could be FOMO of watching a particular film. You're reading something about it. So in marketing particular, you'll enter the film and watch it. But does that film stay in their minds? So you really come to know the value of a film after a few years.
Okay.
That down the line, people, do they still recall that film? Like if you meet somebody, I know now which film they'll mostly talk about. I used to think, okay, Munna Bhai, people will remember. So people, of course, remember. A lot of you have Munna Bhai fans, but a lot of people, like Three Idiots, a bunch will talk about PK. So if you can recall that film after 10 years and if you remember things from that, then I guess it's reached their hearts.
Right.
Because, we don't recall Sholay or Anand or any of those films for the numbers they did. It's purely because of the content that's reached you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
లైక్ ఐ రియలీ 100%, 1000%, $1,000,000 అగ్రీ విత్ హిమ్. నాకు ముఖ్యంగా అదే అంటనమాట, మెమరబుల్ ఫిలిం అనేది చాలా చాలా తక్కువైపోతుంది ఈ మధ్యలో. ఫస్ట్ 1 month లో ఇన్ని కలెక్ట్ చేసింది అండ్ ఆల్సో ఇన్ని వేల కోట్లు కొట్టింది అనుకుంటున్నాం. బట్ ఎట్ ది ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ ద డే కొన్నేళ్ల తర్వాత ఈ పర్టికులర్ మూవీలో ఇన్ని ఐకానిక్ సీన్స్ ఉన్నాయి, లేదంటే ఈ సినిమా నాకు చాలా నచ్చింది, నాకు ఎంతో గుర్తుంది, ఈ సీన్స్ చూసి నాకు చాలా ఉందని చెప్పేసి మనం ఎన్నిసార్లు దాన్ని రీకాల్ చేస్తున్నాం, ఎన్నిసార్లు రీవాచ్ చేస్తున్నాం. అది నాకు ఇంపార్టెంట్ అన్నమాట. కొన్ని సినిమాలు ఇప్పుడు ఎన్ని వందల కోట్లు కొట్టినా, ఐ డోంట్ లైక్ జవాన్ దాట్ 3 కోట్లు కొట్టింది, నాకు రీకాల్ వాల్యూ అస్సలు లేదు దానికి. పఠాన్ కూడా అంతే. పఠాన్ అయితే ఫస్ట్ టైం చూసిన థియేటర్లో ఇంకా మళ్ళీ చూడలేదు. ఇట్ కలెక్టెడ్ 1000 crores, రైట్? అదొక ఇన్స్టెన్స్ లో కొట్టింది అది 1000 crores కానీ సమ్వేర్ ఇట్ డ్రాస్ ఇట్. దాని తర్వాత హౌ మెనీ టైమ్స్ ఐ వాచ్డ్ ఇట్, దాని తర్వాత హౌ మెనీ టైమ్స్ ఐ లైక్డ్ ఇట్, తర్వాత దాని గురించి నేను ఎన్నిసార్లు మాట్లాడుకున్నా, ఇది నాకు ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఇలాంటి మెమరబుల్ సినిమాలు నాకు కావాలి, అది నాకు అనమాట. అంతకంటే ఇంకేం. బట్ ఐ టోటలీ అగ్రీ. మనకు బాహుబలి, ఒక మహానటి, ఒక మాయాబజార్ లాంటి పాత సినిమాలు, గుండమ్మ కథ, ఇలాంటి వాటి గురించి ఎన్నిసార్లు మాట్లాడుకుంటాం. అప్పుడు ఆ సినిమాలు హిట్ అయినా ఫ్లాప్ అయినా ఎవరికి తెలుసు, అంతే కదా.
for me, the film that reached my heart, and I still haven't forgotten the first experience of walking out of the theater watching that movie, is your second film, Lage Raho Munna Bhai, because
Yeah.
I was like, wow, they actually pulled off a sequel that's, in my opinion, better than the original, and that's really tough. I mean, very few films like Godfather, in my opinion, again, do that with the second part. But the second thing is, the writing was so extraordinary, because you took a subject that could go anywhere. Chemical Locha, Mahatma Gandhi. It could have gone wrong in so many ways, right? It's like and you pulled off this amazing screenplay. It made you laugh, it made you cry, it made you think about Gandhian values. I was like, good Lord, how can a movie be like this? So that for me is that movie after all these years. And I don't know what numbers it made, because in those days, I don't think people really released a box office
that it
numbers.
wasn't, the numbers didn't matter.
Yeah.
Historically, even if you see, people would talk weeks sometimes, Silver Jubilee, Golden Jubilees,
Yeah.
25 weeks, 50 weeks, but nobody talks number. Now this trend is actually, and also the numbers are then net and gross and worldwide and,
Yeah.
you know,
NBOC and yes,
it's crazy. Even sometimes I get confused. What are they talking about?
yeah. But so that was mine. But do you have a favorite among your films?
So, you know, it's
I mean, they're all your babies, of course.
because you don't really revisit them after you made it. At the most once in few years you will. So I keep saying, maybe, you know, when you're done with it, you'll one day sit and watch all the films and then you'll.
But did one thing particularly say, okay, this came out pretty much the way I wanted it to, so like I'm really happy with this, kind of that feeling?
Yeah, so in that sense, actually, from the script to the screen, two films for me happened the way exactly one possibly wanted was, one was Three Idiots, and one was my first film,
Munna Bhai.
Munna Bhai MBBS.
Oh, not even Lagero. Okay.
So Lagero went through a lot of script writes and rewrites. Even after we shot, things were changing. We kept on changing. Second half evolved, and a lot of edit changes happened there. So, but these two were the way we wrote it. That's the way it came on screen, and especially Three Idiots, because by that time I had the budget and all to even do it well. Munna Bhai MBBS didn't have much money that time. So sometimes it shows when I look at it, I see, you know, the edges are not refined. And so Three Idiots was the we wanted, we shot it like that, and it finally looks
Three
like
Idiots
that.
is all time
And I
classic.
think that's probably the best loved film, like across generations, because I once went for a junket and I met this guy who said, I watch Three Idiots every evening. I said, really? How can you watch like, the one movie every day? But he was like, no, that it just speaks to me. And he was like, wow, that was him. So
Yeah.
that movie really spoke to a lot of people, because I think especially because in our country so many people have that very big problem of main kya karoon? What do I do when I want to do something and I'm forced into this factory-like system? So one criticism that has been put against your films is that they offer simplistic solutions to complex social issues. What is your thought on that?
See, very honestly, first of all, I actually never start a film thinking that, okay, I'm going to give this message in the film. Nor did MBBS start like that, nor did Lagero or Three Idiots. PK was probably the only time when we said, okay, we want to talk something about God and religion, because we believe God is in this particular way and not the way we perceive it. We never started with the messaging, but inherently you have your own beliefs, and which kind of seep in. So even when we're doing Three Idiots, you want to make an entertaining film, and I wanted to make a film about college life, how people stay in hostels. But through that, if your belief is about education, that it should be in a particular way or the way I've experienced it, so that kind of seeps in. But when you say simplistic, yes, they are simplistic, but to me in my head, it's still practical.
Right.
If you're telling somebody that chase excellence, so it's not a simplistic, it's a very practical solution, because we are forcing our kids to pursue something which really they hate. They don't enjoy it. The parents want good for the kids, but they force them to get into a profession which things will get them more money. Okay, you become a chartered accountant. Oh, you do MBA, you become a finance guy. But that kid has got nothing to do with his joy lies somewhere else. So obviously, if you like something, if your joy is being a journalist and you really enjoy doing interviews, writing, you will automatically excel in it. If you go and pursue that, if you excel in it, you automatically have the perceived notion of success. So it seems simplistic, but to me, it's very practical.
Right. So can I give you a counterpoint of view?
Yeah.
So my path to this was, I was an engineer, because that time everybody was either engineer or doctor or whatever it is. So it's like five, six things that one did, right? But even when I said I want to become a film critic, was what I started off as, there was a 50% chance I would succeed, a 50% chance that I would not be sitting with you today talking like this, because people might have not accepted my way of doing. So I think the real argument that parents have outside in the outside world is like, see, you
If you
do this
don't
degree, at least you are guaranteed a job that will take you through retirement. Whereas you try this other thing, which could be any creative thing, you may succeed, you may not. So that is, I think, the safety aspect that I'm kind of, now that I'm able to look back, I'm saying, okay, like this is what.
You know, I feel you had a 50-50 chance, but if you're going to pursue something which you really don't enjoy,
Then there's
there was
a-
a 100% chance of failure. To
Right.
me, you might be into a job, you might make money, but how do you equate success with that? You really need to think about it. I know money is needed, but eventually all of us survive. Because otherwise there's so much of unhappiness, and if you're enjoying something, you really won't. See, I also, at the same time, I always also say that you have to also figure out that if you're attracted by arts, you want to be an actor or a writer or a director or something, are you passionate enough? Are you obsessed with it? You really want to
That's a good
do
one.
it.
Obsessed, yeah.
Huh. So once somebody told me, Geet Sethi once, a billiards player, the world champion, he told me, again after Three Idiots, we were talking about passion. He said, no, passion is not enough. Obsession is needed. Passion could be, oh, I want to be Shah Rukh Khan. But are you putting enough the efforts he's put in to be where he is? You know, he says, as a billiards player, I got up in the morning and, you know, my hand would pick up the cue and whole day I would be just playing. I was obsessed. If you're obsessed with it, then pursue your passion. If your passion is just to see the fruits of success and you don't walk that path, then you're not passionate enough.
Right.
అంటే లైక్ చాలా ఫిలాసఫీ ఉంది. డెఫినెట్లీ. అంటే లైక్ ఈయన సినిమాల్లోనే అంతే ఉంటాయి కదా బ్రో. లైక్ ఒక సింపుల్ వాట్ ఈస్ కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్ తీసుకుంటాడో దానికి యూనివర్సల్ ఇంపాక్ట్ ఉండే ఒక ఫిలాసఫికల్ ఎలిమెంట్ ఉంటది. దాంట్లో ఒక మెసేజ్ ఉంటది. కరెక్టే సింప్లిస్టిక్ సొల్యూషన్ అంటుండే కరెక్టే. యాజ్ ఐ సెడ్ హీస్ ప్రాక్టికల్. నాకు లగేరా మున్నాబాయ్ కొంచెం అనిపించింది. ఇట్ ఫెల్ట్ వాట్ ఈస్ టూ సూపర్ బ్లోటెడ్ ఒకటి. అండ్ పీకే వాజ్ రియలీ హిట్ ఆన్ ద నీల్. కరెక్ట్‌గా తప్పాది కావు అనేది ఒక పాయింట్ నాకు చాలా ఇష్టం అనమాట. వాట్ ఈస్ ద ఏదైతే సిస్టమ్ ఏదైతే పెట్టుకుంటామో మనం, ఆ సిస్టమ్ మనల్ని జీవించడానికి, క్లారిటీ ఇవ్వడానికి, మన లైఫ్‌ని సింప్లిస్టిక్‌గా చేయడానికి, ప్రాక్టికల్‌గా బతకడానికి చెప్తది. అట్లాంటి సిస్టమ్‌లోనే నువ్వు చాలా ఎలిమెంట్స్ పెట్టేసుకొని ఒకదానికి ఇంకో దానికి కాంట్రాడిక్ట్ చేస్తుంటే దాన్ని లైఫ్ అన్నప్పుడు, ఒకడు చాలా సింపుల్‌గా ఉన్నోడు వచ్చేసి దాన్ని క్వెషన్ చేస్తే పరిస్థితి ఏంటి? దానికి సొల్యూషన్ ఏంటి వాడిచ్చే క్వెషన్స్‌కి? సో వాటన్నిటిని చాలా బాగా చూపిస్తారనమాట. దట్ ఈస్ వై రాజ్‌కుమార్ హిరానీ సక్సీడ్ ఇన్ ఎవ్రీవేర్. నాకు అది మస్తు ఇష్టం. అది డంకీలో పోయింది. అసలు డంకీలకి అసలు ఫిలాసఫీ అసలు టోటలీ రాంగ్ అనిపించేసింది. అదొకటే అయితే హీస్ రైట్. నిజంగా ప్యాషన్ ఇన్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్, అబ్సెషన్ అనేది ఖచ్చితంగా ఉండాలి. లేకపోతే సంగనాగిపోతాం. ఏదో చూస్తున్నా కనబడుతుంది దానికి వెళ్ళిపోతా అంటే నువ్వు చేయకపోతే వస్తుంది. అబ్సెషన్ ఉండాలి. నిజంగా లేవాలి, చేయాలి, డిసిప్లిన్, అబ్సెషన్. నేను చెప్పాను బట్ స్టిల్ అని చెప్పింది కరెక్ట్.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, because a lot of it's obsession plus the discipline, the
Absolutely.
perseverance, all that
But
comes
all that will come if you're obsessed with it. That won't seem like work.
work. Yeah. So you were an editor, and you know, you're saying, okay, now I want to become a director. We were talking about okay, like you did not want to set out saying a message, right? So when you started, I want this for like just the germ of the idea of Munna Bhai MBBS. What did you say? I want to do what? What was the germ of an idea when it was just
Yeah.
before the screenplay?
So see, I grew up in Nagpur, came here, I wanted to make films. I wanted to make films which obviously entertain. And so MBBS was, if I go back to my absolute first draft, was a draft about 3 students in a medical college. Because I had spent a lot of time with my friends who got into medical school. So I used to go and literally live with them in the hostel there. So I saw a lot of things there. It was, some things were very funny, some very moving. So I wrote a script about 3 students. And over the years, every time I used to revisit it, it would feel like it's funny, but it's very anecdotal in nature. Because whatever I've seen, I'm putting it like a... And I was learning, I couldn't really figure out the craft of writing a story, that you need a central spine, something which binds all these things. Then one day also by the time a lot of my friends became doctors, they were practicing, so I also got to know that little world of all the little bit of corruption which happens around their profession. Not everybody.
Yeah.
So I started writing a film about that. So my first draft was about a gangster who wants to get into a medical college because he feels they make more money, and also they get respect. he says, as a gangster, I only make money, I don't get respect. So that was his reason to get into and that one was a very hard-hitting satire on doctors. Then I said, no, yaar, it's unfair because so many of them are good doctors. There's a small pocket. Then I kind of simplified it to a gangster, his father's wish that he wanted to become doctor, and use that route to go. In fact, I toned down the all that. So script is a journey always. You
Yeah.
keep going from here, there, and then
Yeah,
finally.
yeah. So, but the original thing was I want to make a movie about 3 medical college students.
So you go through many stories, and I've realized stories come eventually. What you get attracted to is what you've experienced in life, seen in life, what's inside you, and there's some resonance. So that's eventually what
Right.
comes out.
Right.
So this was a world I'd seen, and I had written something else also. I wrote this didn't work. Then I wrote a completely different story. Babuji Dheere Chalna, I still remember. It was called Babuji Dheere Chalna, which was about a guide in Goa, and wrote that. But again, then it felt like, no, it's not feeling right and this thing. So I went back to this. So a good story will eventually pull you. You'll possibly be lying in the shelf for a long time, but it pulls you again, keeps pulling you again, and sometimes you find solutions, sometimes you don't.
Right. So your next film is Lage Raho Munna Bhai. When Munna Bhai became a big success and also a very loved movie, was that the immediate thing that you thought of, okay, like let's do the sequel, or was it was the result of many discussions and
No, if you go back to that time, there was no concept of sequels.
right?
There was nobody was, in fact, sequels were considered
ఎప్పుడు
failures.
లగే రావు అన్నవా?
Possible 10, 15 years before that, there were some sequels made and they never worked.
Yeah.
Nobody was actually thinking of making a sequel. And I wasn't thinking of it. I had another story which was fascinating. It was like pulling me all the time. Was about this one kid in 1940s who was fascinated with Mahatma Gandhi. He used to follow him everywhere. And one day he gets hit by a baton, British, and he goes into a coma, then wakes up 50 years later in independent India, and then he hallucinates about Gandhi. And through that story, I was trying to say that if Gandhi was alive today, how would he see this independent India? Would he be happy with it, or would he be unhappy with it? Or so that was the story. I worked on it for 6-7 months, and then I realized that though the basic plot is interesting, it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't reaching a happy end, kind of a culmination. Or so then one day in the morning while taking I thought, what if Munna was to meet Gandhi instead of the boy? What would happen? Here's a violent, aggressive gangster, and here's a non-violent. And literally in one morning, I remember the first 20 minutes, it just kept on flowing. Why would Munna Bhai meet? Okay, there would be a reason. What would happen? Gandhiji would be a hallucination. A lot of things just flew. And then we worked on it, though it was very difficult to write that script, because I've always realized when the basic plots are very interesting and intriguing, it's very difficult to have that screenplay, because that interesting part gets over in the first 20 minutes. Then how do you top it? It's always a challenge. So that's why the second half kept on changing, evolving over a period of time. So the reason to do it was accidentally this. In fact, everybody warned me that time. Why are you making this? I remember somebody walking up to me and says, ये 12 बजे का शो तो चल जाएगा, 3 बजे के शो में क्या होगा?
Oh.
हाँ, so that was the perception. Now it's completely different, that sequels
Yeah.
will. So it was just by chance. So if you see, it's not even a progression of that story. It's just those characters into another world. Yeah.
And your next one, 3 Idiots. How was that born?
Yeah. So 3 Idiots again.
3 ఇయర్స్ ముందు చెప్పాను. నాకైతే లగే రావు మున్నా భాయ్. నేను శంకర్ దాదా జిందాబాద్. Rajkumar Hirani is such a great director, definitely. I love Shankar Dada MBBS more. Obviously మన చిరంజీవి గారు చేసేది, అండ్ ఆల్సో జయంజీ పరాంజీ గారు ఆయన చాలా గొప్పగా రీమేక్ చేశారు, అది వేరే విషయం. శంకర్ దాదా జిందాబాద్ అండ్ ఆల్సో లగే రావు మున్నా భాయ్, ఐ హ్యాడ్ దట్ వెళ్తుంది లైక్ ఎట్లా అంటే ఫస్ట్ శంకర్ దాదా ఎంబీబీఎస్ అనే సినిమా, ఆర్ఎల్స్ ఒడిసే మున్నా భాయ్ ఎంబీబీఎస్ అనే ఫిలింలో ఏదైతే ఎమోషన్ ఆర్ఎల్స్ సమ్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ మెసేజ్ దే వాంట్ టు గివ్, కైండ్స్ ఆఫ్ ఒక మంచి ఇట్లా మన బాడీ లోపల నరం లెక్క నడిచిపోతూ ఉంటుంది అనమాట. ఇట్ డజంట్ కమ్ అవుట్, ఏదో అనవసరంగా తీసి పెట్టినట్టు అనిపించదు. దీంట్లో కూడా కొంచెం అలానే అనిపిస్తూ ఉంటుంది లగే రావు మున్నా భాయ్లో. కాకపోతే క్లైమాక్స్ అండ్ ఆల్సో సెకండ్ హాఫ్‌లో కొంచెం లైక్ మరీ ఎళ్ళిపోతున్నారు. ఇట్స్ ఆన్ ద ఫేస్ అనే ఫీలింగ్ వస్తదనమాట నాకు. 'శంకర్ దాదా జిందాబాద్‌లో' కూడా అదే అనిపించింది. ఓహ్! అండ్ మీరు గమనిస్తే 'శంకర్ దాదా జిందాబాద్‌లో' 'లగే రహం మున్నాబాయిలో' ఉండే సీన్స్ యాజ్ ఇట్ ఈజ్ లేపి పెట్టేసారు. డబ్బింగ్ చేసి తెలుగులో. సో, అదొకటి అనిపిస్తది. బట్ 'లగే రహం మున్నాబాయి' నాకు అంత బాగా నచ్చదు. 'శంకర్ దాదా ఎంబీబీఎస్' ఈజ్ ఫేవరెట్ అంతే.
I had stayed in
3 ఇడియట్స్.
a hostel in the film institute, so I always wanted to do a film about students, hostel life actually, what happens in a hostel, and so it started from there, and
ఇట్ వాస్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఆథెంటిక్ థో.
then we read that book, Five Point Someone, so that was in engineering. But then I said maybe engineering world is more, uh, what should I say, more acceptable than a film institute world. So it started from there. But then we kept on writing, rewriting, and it eventually became totally something else. And that's when all this education thing seeped in. But I think that was the fastest Abhijat and me wrote, I remember. We literally had a draft in 18-20 days. First draft, of course, from that draft to execution again took 1 year to rewrite. But what was interesting in that was that because we had so many incidents from our own life, Abhijat had tons of experiences staying in Ahmedabad. I had similar things from Nagpur. So we just kept on putting all those things together, and then
It happened.
it happened pretty fast.
You know, I'll just take a break here from this line of questioning because I read somewhere that you also mentioned this, that you shoot a film and then you edit something and see, and then if that's kind of not coming together, you reshoot and then you re-edit. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this well, and that's why your films take like so long. So can you talk a little
No,
about?
actually, I don't do that at all.
Okay, then I don't know what I read. Yeah,
No.
okay.
So we spend a lot of time working on the script.
Right.
I work hell of a lot on the script, and we do a lot of pre-production. And in fact, the shooting is, I've shot films very, very fast actually. Literally 70-80 days. We
Finished.
big films also we finish it off. Then we cut it when we see it. And if you feel now that certain section is not working, so I think only for PK and partly a little bit for Donkey and Sanju slightly is where we've gone and reshot. But reshot means it will be like 3
Like a
days
patch
of
or
work, 3 days of work, 2 days of work, and that's the maximum we would.
Okay.
If it's not working, then we don't say let it go. Okay, let's see if we can. Like PK, there was a major chunk which was not working, so we had to remove almost 20 minutes from there. Then we rewrote some other scenes and shot. Otherwise, in fact, we shoot economically. We shoot very fast because there's tons of prep. We put time in.
Right. So I don't know, maybe there was a misquote or something like that. So we've done 3 Idiots and next PK. That was, you
3
said you
Idiots nunchi
wanted to do
PK.
something
Oy
about
amma, chaala
God
good.
and religion.
So 3 years happened, and then Abhijat, me, I remember we were taking a walk one morning, and we used to go to various places to do. When we ended up in Borivali National Park, walking, thinking now what to do next. And it was literally 3 years had released, and 3 days later we were walking, what to do next, and that came from that we should do what we
6 years అనుకుంటా.
strongly believe in. And Abhijat me share similar views on religion, God. So that was the one thing which came from, okay, making an attempt to talk something about the fake godments we have in this country and how they loot people. So it started from there, and so that's what I was saying. That was the only film where we said, okay, this is what we want to talk about, rather than. And now the challenge was, this is what we want to say. How do we make it entertaining?
Right.
So that time I remember the protagonist in the first draft was a rationalist, working for the Rationalist Society of India, and would go to villages and perform the same magic tricks which these godmen do and trying to teach them. Then he seemed very boring to us. Yeah, this is not working. Then we wrote a character like Mowgli, who was left in a jungle for 20 years. He comes out of it. So nobody's actually told him anything about God. So he has no idea what God could be, because we are usually told, depending on which household you're born in, they'll tell you God is like this. So he became a character like that, who suddenly enters this civilized world. Then one day I remember Vijat came up with the idea. I said, no, what if he's an alien and he has no concept of. So that seemed a little more exciting. So, yeah, I do from there.
No, so that's for me in PK, that is the stroke of genius of bringing in this ultimate outsider. Because for me,
Brilliant.
your films are like they're always about somebody who's coming from outside the system and then like changing the system. At least not everything, but like generally. So I'm reminded of two of Rishikesh Mukherjee's films. One is Bawarchi, where Rajesh Khanna comes
Yeah.
into this household which has all kinds of
Fights happening,
fights and this and that, and at the end he leaves. They're all together. And
అలా
similarly,
వేయకుండా పొరంలో మనకి
Khoobsurat, where Rekha again comes to a household where there's some
Conflict.
like conflict and all that, and she brings her personality into that and changes them and leave that. I know you've been influenced by Rishikesh
Yeah.
Mukherjee, but do these two films mean something very special to you? Like, are you aware of them while like this is coming into that zone? Are you aware?
Rishikesh Mukherjee, of course, I love his cinema, and
In fact, you have Anand in one of your
Yeah, Anand is one
the
of
books
my
and all that.
favorite
Like in
films.
your films, there is a reference to Anand and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah,
so see, these things might happen
subconscious.
subconsciously, because if to me my favorite Rishikesh Mukherjee films would be Anand or Chupke Chupke, Golmaal, Abhiman, these kind of films. I've seen these films, but I don't have too much of a recall to these things. So these things happen subconsciously, and it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey. You start from somewhere else. Then once you start living in that universe, something will hit you from somewhere, something, and so I consciously don't do these things.
Yeah. No, and I also think that sometimes something stays with you, and then maybe 20 years later you pick up on it without even realizing. Because for me, it felt like when the title of PK happened, I remembered a joke when I saw the movie, and I didn't know what the PK was. So when I realized it was his name, I remembered a joke in Chupke Chupke, which is also Rishikesh Mukherjee, where Dharmendra says. Instead of, there's a
PK
guy
is
called
a-
PK Srivastav,
Srivastav.
and he says Srivastav PK aaye hain.
हाँ.
So it's like he's
yeah.
drunk, that's the sense that you get.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, did he remember that and do that a little homage?
It could be. It's a PK as initials is always a joke. PK is so and so PK.
Yeah.
So it could have.
Yeah.
It wasn't consciously done because we had called him. The original title of the film was Tully.
Yeah, I heard of that. Yeah.
Somebody was drunk and this thing. Then that somebody felt it's looking too pedestrian, and so then we called it PK. That wherever he goes as an alien, wherever he goes, because of the way he looks at the world, people think he's drunk. So PK aaya kya? So he starts believing his name is PK.
Right. Now, about the other name of that film, it's intrigued me. She's called Jagat Janani. That's a very unusual name. How did you come up with that?
I guess it started from Ranchod Das, Shamal Das, Chanchod. So we've always felt, Abhijat and me, that give unique names and that might stick a little more than just
గుర్తుండిపోయే names.
than just giving it very standard names. Though you can't have those names. I'm also aware that names should be so easy for the other characters to say. So that's why we call him Rancho, which is you can't call him Ranchod Das every time. It becomes very odd for an actor who's performing too.
Yeah.
So I pick names which are simplistic, like Pia in Three Idiots. So, but this was a fun thing that his original name was this. So Jagat Janani came from there like that. Let's give her a very unusual name, but we used to call her Jagu.
Yeah, and that's a joke in itself. So I've read, like, again, I hope this at least is something that you said, which is like when you approached Amir for Three Idiots, that he felt he was a little too old for the role. And when you approached Ranbir for Sanju, he was like a little skeptical about doing this, like, don't tell me it's that script or whatever, that the Sanju script. So when you have actors expressing a certain reservation, but you want those actors for whatever reason, how do you negotiate and say, come into my world? I want, this will work, trust me, come, I'll guide you. How do you do that?
See, you can't be fake about it. First of all, you can't be faking it. You have to, first of all, believe that there's a story and you're seeing that person. Now, if you look at from the other person's point of view, somebody used to play that role. So when I think of Ranbir playing as a role, Sanju, I can imagine his worries would be, how will I look like that? Here's an existing actor whose face people know. Will I be able to play that? And will it be interesting enough? So you have to understand those worries. And I think Ranbir's initial worry was, because he's been close to Sanju and knows his whole story. So he felt ki, is there a story in it? That's the reason when I messaged him, he said, I hope it's not Sanju. But when I told him the story and then I gave him a script to read, so he read that story, he took his own time, and then when he felt comfortable, he came on his own. So you really can't push somebody to do it. At some point, you have to just open up, talk about the script, we'll do it this way, and then have faith in each other. But with Amir, actually, it was a crazy story that Amir that time was doing Gajani and he was extremely muscular and this thing. And when I met him, we met twice. First time he had some issues with the script. Then I worked for it 2 months on it. Then I again met him. So I think he liked the script, but his whole, possibly the concern was, how will I look like that? He asked me. So I said, Amir, you'll have to just lose this and you are Amir, yaar. You'll do it. And we started shooting it. Much later, I think after the film got over or sometime, one time he told me, he said, I did it because of your conviction. And I told him, I did it thinking you'll do it. Anyways, so both blindly went into it. And
So at what point in the script does the actor begin to formulate in your head, like, no, okay, I'm getting here, this looks like, because I don't think you begin saying, I want to work with so-and-so, right? You don't.
It's a trap if you do it like that, then you'll constantly be aware of their strengths and weaknesses and you'll start rewriting.
Yeah.
So you write the way you should normally write, keeping that character in mind. And then at some point you start seeing that, okay, he might be perfectly right for it. And then once you even sign up somebody, you jam and you still make modifications. It's a ever-growing process, it doesn't really end till the release. You keep evolving, things keep happening. Like PK, we had written it as a Rajasthani character, then Amir said Bhojpuri will be interesting. So it keeps changing. All these kind of things actors do bring in a lot of, finally they have to play it. They have to be able to, so you have to be constantly aware that this is a guy who's going to play it. You have to give him all the comfort to, and they do bring in. They're all
Right.
bunch of intelligent people who really bring in. It's only when you work with a bad actor you realize that, oh God, you're thinking like this, you're not rising from the page. And a good actor will really take it ahead.
When you did.
Like, నిజంగా ఆమిర్ ఖాన్, ఈవెన్ సంజయ్ దత్ కానీ, లైక్ దే ఆర్ ఫెంటాస్టిక్ యాక్టర్స్. లైక్ రాజ్ కుమార్ హిరానీ గారి ఫిలిమ్స్లోనే గొప్ప యాక్టర్స్ ఉంటారు. ఇది చాలా బాగా చెరీ పిక్ చేసుకున్నట్టే చేసుకుంటాడు, చాలా బాగా చేసుకుంటాడు. లైక్ అవన్నీ కనబడతాయి. అండ్ ఇప్పటివరకు ఆయన 6 ఫిల్మ్స్ చేసిండా. దానికి తప్ప మిగతా అన్ని కూడా చాలా ఇష్టం అందరికి, చాలా ఇష్టం. లైక్ మెమరబుల్ ఫిలిమ్స్. నాకు పర్టికులర్గా లగీరా మున్నాబాయ్ అంత బాగా నచ్చకపోయినా, ఐ రియలీ లైక్ వాట్ ఈస్ ద డైనమిక్ బిట్వీన్ సర్కిట్ అండ్ మున్నాబాయ్. అవన్నీ ఉంటాయి. లైక్ టెక్నికల్లీ మనకి శంకర్ దాదా అండ్ ఏటీఎం అట్లాంటి క్యారెక్టర్స్ ఆయన క్రియేట్ చేసుకొని అట్లాంటి నేరేటివ్తో చాలా బాగా చూపిస్తారు అన్నమాట. ఈవెన్ పీకే కూడా లైక్ అది రెవల్యూషనైజ్డ్ అయిపోయింది, అప్పుడు ఆగమాగం చేసేసారు అన్నట్టు. బట్ ఐ రియలీ లైక్ ద ఫిల్మ్, చాలా ఇష్టము. దానిలో ఉండే పాయింట్స్ కూడా చాలా బాగా పెడుతూ ఉంటాడు. ఎక్కడ కూడా పర్ఫార్మెన్సెస్ కూడా చాలా ఆన్ పాయింట్ ఉంటాయి. ఎక్కడ కూడా వీళ్ళు ఎక్కువ చేసేస్తున్నారు, ఈ రోల్కి వీళ్ళు సూట్ కాలేదు, అట్లేం ఉండదు. అవి నాకు ఎక్కడ అనిపించింది అంటే, అట్లే సంజు సినిమాలో సంజయ్ దత్ బయోపిక్ అయినా కానీ సోనాం కపూర్ వాళ్ళ ఫాదర్ బొమ్మన్ ఇరానీ చేస్తాడు. ఈవెన్ మనము దాంట్లో మన మున్నాబాయ్ ఎంబీబీఎస్ ఎపిసోడ్లో కూడా బొమ్మన్ ఇరానీ ఉంటాడు. హీ లుక్స్ డిఫరెంట్లీ. బట్ అది మనకి కొంచెం అప్పుడు అరే ఏట్రా అనే ఫీలింగ్ వచ్చినా కానీ ఇట్ డజంట్ టేక్ అస్ అవే ఫ్రమ్ ద ఫిల్మ్. అది నాకు చాలా ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్ అనిపిస్తుంది అనమాట. సినిమాలో 2 క్యారెక్టర్లకనే చేసిండు, అక్కడ టెక్నికలీ రియల్ యాక్టర్ తోటి చేపిస్తున్నావు, బట్ స్టిల్ నీకు అది ఎబ్బెట్టిగా అనిపించలేదు. దట్ ఈస్ వై రాజు హిరానీ వర్క్స్ నా ఫీలింగ్.
Munna Bhai, Sanjay Dutt he's a star and he's always been some kind of a star, but he was not like a super mega star. So the thing is, you cast him because he's right for the role, like because he's done that, and you also twist that, like, okay, he's played a gangster all this while, but let's have fun with that aspect of it, and so that fit in like perfectly kind of thing. But as you become Rajkumar Hirani and as your films becoming bigger hit setting benchmarks at the box office, again, whether you are aware of them or not is a different thing, but the world is aware of them, the market is aware of them. Is there a pressure to cast stars over, let's say, has there been any movie where you said, I actually want this actor, I don't want you to name them, but I want this actor because he's a good actor, but I have to go with the star because the market value would be better? No names. I don't want the names.
Yeah.
I'm just
No, actually, I consider myself lucky that I've got stars to work in. Uh, but actually, they've not been cast because they are stars. Like going from the first film, I had no choice. Nobody wanted to work. So, in fact, Sanju, I was, when Sanju came as an option, okay, if Sanju will, Vinod had reached out to him and he couldn't say no to Vinod. So my first reaction, oh God, I was not a major Sanju fan. He used to do those action films I've not seen. But then I started seeing his films. And then when I saw Vastav, I said, yaar, ye karega. Then I used to sit down every scene, try and visualize it. And so then I thought it's great, yaar. He's actually a blessing in disguise. And so it started like that. Second film, of course, the same. Arshad Varsi was that time playing Circuit. Three Idiots. Actually, we started thinking, Amir and all came much later in the picture. When we started, we always wanted a bunch of 3 new actors. And that times, all these people are really not on the radar. Ranveer and all these people. So we had cast 3 new actors, auditioned them independently of each other. But whenever we used to put them together, there was some chemistry was not happening. And I was feeling the lack of experience of younger actors, newer actors. If it was 1, you can work hard with somebody, but 3, somehow it was. So it's a process of went on for a very long time. And Amir happened just by chance, actually. I wasn't even really reaching out to him, and then somehow we heard the script, and then I felt, because Amir also has a, very baby face, actually.
like a boyish.
Yeah, very boyish, and he's a smart guy, actually. He took off his shoes, brought his height down so that when Baman catches him and he says, I look like a student, he lost all the weight, wear those loose clothes. And so then the challenge was to get 2 other actors who again can't be young. They also have to match the same age. So in fact, if you revisit the film, you'll see even the background actors we cast were all older. We didn't get any 18, 20-year-old to sit in the background because suddenly the balance will go off. So the reason that time was, it was again not stars. These other actors I was getting were not experienced enough to pull. New actors were not able to pull a performance like this. So between that, I took a chance that, okay, this might be a better option to. Yeah. Same with Ranveer. When I cast Ranveer, everybody said how Ranveer will look like Sanju, how Ranveer will look like. There's no way Ranveer can look like. So in fact, the first teaser we came out with, we were trying to address those issues. There were 2 things coming up: how Ranveer will look like Sanju and will all talk the truth. So in the first teaser, we showed Ranveer very stalking. He said, I've had so many girlfriends, I've done drugs, I've kept guns and everything. He talked about, kind of clarified it in the beginning.
So yeah, okay, that was part 1 of Rajkumar Hirani gar interview. I really like the interview because ఎందుకంటే భరద్వాజ్ రంగన్ గారి దగ్గర చాలా మంచి క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉంటాయి. అండ్ ఆల్సో ఇట్స్ నాట్ అ ఫిలిం రిలేటెడ్ ఇంటర్వ్యూ. ఒక ఫిలిం రిలీజ్ అవుతుంది, ప్రమోషన్ మెటీరియల్ చేయాలన్నట్టు చేయట్లేదు. ఆయన ఫిలిమోగ్రఫీ గురించి మాట్లాడుతూ చాలా ఎక్స్టెంట్గా ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తూ చాలా బాగా చెప్పారు నా ఫీలింగ్ అన్నమాట. ఇట్లాంటి ఇంటర్వ్యూలు నాకు చాలా ఇష్టం. వాటిల్లో వాళ్ళ థాట్ ప్రాసెస్ ఎలా ఉంది, ఎలాంటి డిసిజన్ తీసుకుంటే మనం ఈ సినిమా చూస్తున్నాం పర్టికులర్గా, నాకు అది ఇష్టం అనమాట. ఐఎమ్ ఎక్సైటెడ్ ఫర్ దాట్. సెకండ్ పార్ట్లో ఏం చూపిస్తారో. ఐ వాంటెడ్ టు టాక్ అబౌట్ మోర్ ఆన్ డంకీ, పీకే అండ్ సంజు. ఎందుకంటే ఇట్స్ లాస్ట్ 3 ఫిల్మ్స్ కాబట్టి. అండ్ పీకే చాలా ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్, చాలా జరిగినాయి దాని చుట్టంతా. అండ్ ఆల్సో డంకీ వాజ్ లైక్ ద ఫస్ట్ డిసప్పాయింట్మెంట్. బాక్స్ ఆఫీస్ కొట్టింది, బట్ వాళ్ళ రేంజ్కి ఇంకా చాలా కొట్టాల్సింది. 1000 కోట్ల సినిమా టెక్నికల్ చేయాలంటే ఎందుకంటే షారుఖ్ ఖాన్ హ్యాట్రిక్ మీద, రాజ్కుమార్ హిరానీ ఆఫ్టర్ సంజు ఇంకా చాలా ఉండాల్సింది. సో దాని గురించి ఏమైనా మాట్లాడగలుగుతారా, ఏం జరిగింది అనేది ఒకటి. అండ్ ఆల్సో ఐ వాంట్ దెమ్ టు టాక్ అబౌట్ సంజు యాజ్ అ హోల్. నాకు సంజులో నేరేటివ్ నిజం చెప్పారా అన్నా కానీ ఇట్ వాస్ టూ సాఫ్ట్ ఫిలిం. లైక్ ఒక గ్లాస్ వేసారు అనమాట. ఇది ఒకటి జరిగితే దాని మీద ఒక మంచి గ్లాస్ వేసినట్టు అనిపిస్తుంది అనమాట. సో దాని గురించి ఏం మాట్లాడదు చూడాలి. సో ఇప్పటి వరకు మీకు ఎలా అనిపించిందో కింద కామెంట్స్లో చెప్పండి. సెకండ్ పార్ట్ చేయమంటారా లేదో కింద కామెంట్స్లో చెప్పండి. అండ్ ఇలాంటివి నచ్చుతున్నాయి అంటే మాత్రం మీకు ఇంకా నెక్స్ట్ ఏ ఇంటర్వ్యూ చేయాలో చెప్పండి కింద కామెంట్స్లో. అండ్ ప్లీజ్ సబ్స్క్రైబ్. మా కాంటెంట్ నచ్చితే మాత్రం కుమ్మేద్దాం. 10,000 దాటేసేద్దాం. ఇంకా 5,000 దాటేసిందిగా 10,000 పెట్టేసాం టార్గెట్. అండ్ ఐపీఎల్ మీద చాలా వీడియోలు రాబోతున్నాయి, చాలా లైవ్స్ రాబోతున్నాయి. సో ప్లీజ్ సబ్స్క్రైబ్. అండ్ ఐ హోప్ యూ ఎంజాయ్డ్. అండ్ నెక్స్ట్ వీడియోతో మళ్ళీ కలుస్తాను.